Do you think if we had the opportunity to bring back Buckner, we would bring him back?
Nope.
Too expensive?
Yep. That's the only reason. That's the only reason, because he earns so much money right now at the Colts that we just couldn't afford that. So, sorry, I want him back. I want him back so bad, because Javon Kinlaw is a bust in my eyes right now. He is not a bust because he don't have the talent, or he's not having the upside that he has right now, that doesn't have the potential. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that he was a luxury pick.
Yes.
In the NFL draft.
You don't take that. You don't take that prospect at 14th.
Nope. And 14th. If you are watching the stats of Kevin Givens is one of the best defensive tackles against double team when we are talking about pass rush.
Yep.
And he is making the impact that Javon Kinlaw just couldn't do. So
that's right. And the Niners should have known they had Kevin Givens, and if they had known they had Kevin Givens, they would have known you don't have to spend the 14th pick in the draft to get a guy to do what you already have. Whew, that's a tough, because to me, their best defensive tackles right now are Kevin Givens and DJ Jones. When those two are on the field, they're at their best. Kinlaw is fine, but Givens is better. Jones is better.
Yeah.
Well, another thing here, this is interesting. Do you think if we had the opportunity to bring back Buckner, would we bring him back? The question kind of presumes, do the Niners realize they've made a mistake? And the Niners never admit to making mistakes, ever. So what they're thinking right now, I already know it. They're thinking, look. We don't have Bosa and Ford, okay? If we had Bosa and Ford, Kinlaw and Armstead would look a lot better. Their numbers would be better because quarterbacks couldn't step up in the pocket, and if they did, they would step up into sacks that basically Bosa and Ford would create for Kinlaw and Armstead. And if Buckner were on the field, this is what they're telling themselves. If Buckner were on the team, he would have the same problems that Armstead and Kinlaw are having, because there's no edge rush and the quarterbacks don't have to step up. This is what they tell themselves in Santa Clara, and it's why nothing will change. And I'm not saying they're wrong, because sometimes they get things right and go to the Super Bowl, but they don't win.
And the sad thing about it is that just they are not realizing that DeForest Buckner was an elite defensive tackle so long before we got Dee Ford and Nick Bosa.
That's right. And again, they inherited him, so I don't think they. It's like Harry Potter or Cinderella. It's like, that's not really my kid,
Yeah.
So when they do well, it's like, great. But when the guy that you drafted did well, it's like, oh my God, Fred Warner is the greatest player of all time, and he's worth $20 million, and I get credit. But when DeForest Buckner does well, it's like, well, that's kind of on Trent Baalke's resume.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to kind of nitpick DeForest Buckner to death until we get rid of him. But with Fred Warner, we're going to just look for all the positives, even though he's not necessarily the perfect player. I mean, he has strengths and weaknesses like everyone else, but they're going to end up giving him $20 million. The contract that they wouldn't give Buckner, I bet you. And Buckner's a freaking pass rusher. As great as Fred Warner is not a pass rusher. So I'd rather give the money to Buckner.
Yeah, that's true. But I wouldn't let Warner go. I would, if I would be the GM or the head coach of this team, I would say that last postseason, just let go of Arik Armstead and keep DeForest Buckner, because Buckner has much more impact than Armstead had. And I think that I read somewhere that a lot of the people are writing down that that we didn't have the money to give it to DeForest Buckner, but that's bullshit, I think, because you can just keep cutting people like Dante Pettis or Trent Taylor or other people like that, and you can just make a lot of space for a special player that DeForest Buckner was.
True. Other thing we were talking about earlier, we were talking about the leadership that the Niners are missing. I think people underrate DeForest Buckner's leadership. He was young, but he was also a captain. He was a terrific captain, and he was on this team in 2016 when they were 2-14, and he was he built them up into the best defense in the league, the Super Bowl team that they were. He was the heir apparent to Joe Staley as the leader, the number one leader on the team, and they didn't value that at all. At all.
Yeah.
They didn't see it. They got rid of him, and they said, what, Armstead and Jimmy Ward can replicate that? Jimmy Ward's not a leader. Armstead's not a leader. They've been on the team longer than Buckner, and they should have known that those guys don't have that kind of personality. Warner is kind of growing into it, but Warner's still 23 years old. He's still really young.
Yeah.
Doing a good job, though.